It's game day, and we've had another player. In fact, Miami's sack leader has been added to the injury report. Let's talk Miami against Stanford.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen here on this glorious Saturday, this game day. Miami Gardens tonight at 7 o'clock. Miami Hurricanes will have their first ever meeting against the Stanford Cardinal. Hurricanes looking to bounce back from a tough loss against Louisville. Stanford beat Florida State last week, so we have that in common. We have both beaten the Seminoles this year. I'm Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC, and host of Postgame on the Hurricanes Radio Network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're going to be joined by the Postcast King in just a second. We're going to have our predictions for Miami against Stanford. We'll talk keys to the game. But Grease, let's start out with the update. Now, Miami is much healthier than Stanford. Stanford has a ton of key injuries. Running back, defensive back. Their quarterback, Ben Gulbranson, is expected to play. He's probable, but he could be hobbled. He suffered a knee injury last week. Miami's injury report looks far better than Stanford's, but there was a late addition to it. Someone who did not appear at all on the Thursday night injury report, but did appear on Friday as questionable, and that is Hurricane sack leader Akheem Mesidor. Now, Grease, we all saw Mesidor clearly playing through pain last week in the Louisville game, got banged up a couple of times, ended up leaving the game. I'm certainly not surprised that he's questionable. And even if questionable implies that he might play, I feel like this is a game where you can probably afford to rest Mesidor, give Marquise Lightfoot and Armando Blunt extra reps opposite Ruben Bain, and hopefully you get Mesidor as healthy as possible for the following week against SMU. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. And I don't think this team, though, is in any position to think that way at all about any player or any team after what I saw last week when Mario Cristobal, Shannon Dawson got taken behind the woodshed like kindergartners and spanked by the Braun brothers. And when I see a coaching clinic put on against us like the Braun brothers did last week, and Carson Beck was ill-prepared to throw the ball where he needed to throw it against that defense. Our offensive line couldn't protect him at all. All of a sudden, the running game that's averaging 5, 6, 7 yards a carry is stuck in the mud and can't go anywhere. And then Stanford comes down and you spot him 14 points. And then the defense adjusted. Give Corey Heatherman credit. He's the only coach who deserved to put on a headset last week in the orange and green, as far as I'm concerned, at least at the top of the totem pole. And, Mario could be upset and have all the accountability he wanted after the game, but he got worked last week. And Shannon Dawson got worked last week. And Corey Heatherman got worked last week. Team was not ready to play. They weren't ready for the scheme Louisville threw at them. They weren't ready for the plays they were calling. Carson Beck was not ready to make his checkdowns. You had receivers running the wrong routes. Bain didn't make any plays. Mesidor didn't make any plays. The quick drops kind of negated the pass rush and getting rid of the ball. So my point is, and that's all I'm going to say about the coaching, because they know it, whether they say it or not, they know they got worked. And this is the problem with Mario Cristobal. He's a great recruiter. You love him because he played here. He says all the right things. He makes all the right moves other than in game. And, they beat Notre Dame. They beat Florida. They beat Florida State. They beat USF. They have some big wins. Those have to be credited for Mario and the staff. Yeah, but
of course,
when you have a game, and it happens to every coach, Alex, I'm not saying, look, nobody's perfect, right? I know a lot of head coaches who are really great coaches. Don Shula was badly outcoached during games in his career, right? And it happens to every single coaching staff. You get taken by surprise, you weather the storm. But here's the difference between the great teams and the teams that aren't great. Two things. One, the great teams find a way to win those games when nothing goes their way. And I thought at the end of that game, and I've said it in the postcast, hey, don't kick the field goal. We don't play for ties on our home field. We're the University of Miami. We go for the throat. We kick their ass. We win this game. And we go, that was a tough one. We snatched that one away. That's the difference between this program now, where I believe it's headed, and where it's been. Look at the 01 team. Everyone talks about that being the greatest team of all time. If Phillip Buchanan doesn't knock away that ball in the end zone at Virginia Tech, what are they talking about? right?
Remember the Boston College game that year? They were this close.
And Matt Walters. Yep. Ed Reed took the ball away. Give me that ball, dog. Give me that ball. So, yeah, you're right. Those games were games that we won when we were actually winning. Like the year before at Washington, the clock ran out on us. We lost by 5. That game cost us back-to-back national championships.
Yeah.
The Ohio State game in the Fiesta Bowl, a game we should have won. McGahee gets hurt. Their front four won the game for them. The University of Miami won those games when we had Jimmy, when we had Howard, when we had Dennis Erickson. Didn't win them when we had Larry Coker. No one could have messed up the 0-1 team. He almost did. But Mario Cristobal has got to figure out a way to win those games. And more so, Carson Beck should know, being at Georgia all those years, all that experience. And then one more thing I just want to point to. The record after the calendar hits mid-October has been abysmal, if not disastrous. Everything fell apart. The wheels came off last year, even with Cam Ward, the number 1 pick in the draft. So I think Mario Cristobal has a lot to prove in an era of NIL, in an era of the portal, in an era when James Franklin's getting fired a year after making the playoffs 5 games into a season, in an era where they're ready to run coaches out of LSU and everywhere else. Because of a couple losses, Billy Napier gets fired. This is not the landscape in college football to be losing games like that Louisville game. So that said, if they don't come out and beat Stanford like they should have beaten Louisville, then all bets are off with Mario Cristobal, and he's going to have an army of orange and green people chasing him everywhere he goes, as he should.
Well, I mean, you're right about it in one aspect that, a team like Miami should not be losing games like that. But this also is an era where if you can bounce back, it's more forgivable. But if you can bounce back, they have to show they can do that, right? Because, I mean, I saw the Alabama Crimson Tide got completely outclassed by Florida State week 1, and Alabama since then has become maybe the hottest team outside of Ohio State, maybe the hottest team in the country right now behind OSU. So obviously we need Miami to do that, and the bounce back starts today. And Grease, a lot of what went wrong a week ago against Louisville are things that we need to see you go right today. You start with Carson Beck, who throws 4 interceptions, could have been 5. One of them didn't count. They called it back due to what I thought was a questionable penalty. Probably shouldn't have been called by those ACC officials, who, of course, do a fantastic job week after week. So I need to see Beck play a clean game today, Grease. Stanford only has 1 interception all year. So no excuse to have a multiple pick game today. Like, if Miami throws even 1 interception, let alone 2, 3, 4, it's a huge problem against the Stanford D that has not produced takeaways at a high level today. Obviously, we want to get the running game going again, Grease. This 2-game stretch of under 100 yards hasn't happened in Miami in 2 consecutive games
What's
since
the deal
2021.
there, Alex? What have you learned about that in your insights and your travels? I hate that delayed inside draw into the teeth of the defense that they run 1,000 times a game. Right. But other than that, it just didn't seem like anything about the running game was in sync at all. And then they just give up on it. It makes me, when I see Don Solinger going around on podcasts, it makes me just go, oh my God, where is he now? We miss him.
I mean, if you ask the offensive linemen about it, and we had a chance to talk to a couple of them this week, or Mark Fletcher, who we had a chance to talk to this week, like they will bring up effort and execution, right? Though Mark Fletcher said it a couple times this week that he admitted Louisville played harder than we did. So that's been lacking, right? I mean, obviously last week should have been the ultimate wake-up call, right? But then it's also, I mean, listen, we are armchair coaches, you and me. Like, we don't claim to be smarter than anybody, but we do watch these games and we're like, where are the outside runs? Where are the toss plays? Where's the misdirection? In fact, when Miami got a little creative on that Malachi Toney touchdown run, it's like, hey, look,
awesome. What a play.
That was awesome. Can we see a couple more plays like that throughout the game? So I think it's equal parts execution and lack of variety. But I want to go over a couple more keys when we come back. Plus, we're going to give you our predictions. We're going to get the Jim Grieshaber prediction, the Alex Donno prediction. Miami, by the way, is favored by 29.5 points. So it's a huge spread for those who are interested in that sort of thing to cover. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new Game Day episode of Locked On Canes. Folks, This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep moving the game forward. And for us this week, this is all about cultural stuff. This is all about coaching. This is about players rallying together and bouncing back. This is not about any specific play that happened in the game last week. This is about people like Mark Fletcher, like Ruben Bain, like Carson Beck, like Cristobal and his staff, the leaders behind the scenes, getting this team in position to bounce back. Because if you win out, everything is still in front of you. If you win out, you're in the college football playoff. If you win out, you're probably in the ACC championship game. But even if you're not, you're in the college football playoff if you go 11-1. So this is the moment. This is the fork in the road for Miami. And folks, when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. It's almost the weekend, guys, and it is the weekend now. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, folks, we're going to try to win on the field today against the Stanford Cardinal. DoorDash saves you more every time you order. This player has delivered when it matters most. Let's break it down. We mentioned Malachi Toney, who was the best Miami Hurricane on the field last week despite the loss. Malachi delivered in a big way. 135 receiving yards, a rushing touchdown, a passing touchdown for a 2-point conversion. Malachi Toney always delivers when the pressure comes on. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching Malachi week after week, this performance was not a fluke. Toney is on a streak. And just like Toney delivered for the Hurricanes, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period goes through November 18th. Thank you for making this game day Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. All right, so Jim Grieshaber with the Postcast King, who's going to be on, by the way, right after the game tonight. Locked On Canes YouTube, Locked On Canes audio. You're going to see and hear our man Grease breaking down what will hopefully be a feel-good bounce-back win for Miami tonight, favored by 29.5 points against the Cardinal. All right, so Grease, we brought up, want to see no turnovers tonight, no takeaways for Stanford. That's something we need to see after last week. We want to see Miami reestablish a running game, maybe give us more variety with the running game in this one. Another obvious key to the game that should stand out to everybody is cut down on the freaking penalties. Miami, Greece, the last 2 games have been penalized a total of 22 times. Just for reference, the team that's had the fewest penalties all year is Iowa, who's committed just 16 penalties all season. Miami's had more penalties in the last 2 games than Iowa has had all season long. I think Army is number 2 in fewest penalties at 22, which Miami has done in the past 2 weeks, 22 penalties. So we have to clean that up as well.
Yeah, and it really is Miami against Miami right now. It's Miami versus Miami. And so the penalties have been huge, the turnovers, obviously, and they didn't score off the turnovers. You know, I mean, it's crazy, right? So
that's right. Yeah.
But
even if they're not scoring off of them, it's an extra possession. You give it to the other team.
And a big part of that game, too, was field position. How many times would we get the ball, inside of our own 20, penalty on the first play, back it up 10, you're back on the 10-yard line. Didn't reverse the field position until late in the game. And when that happened, Miami really started to play better, take over the game. Beck throws an interception, gets bailed out by a penalty. Then he throws the late interception. So had so many opportunities to win that game. So in spite of being badly outcoached and Louisville coming out and surprising you, the fake field goal is 14-0 before you blink. From that point, the defense held, right? It is the penalties. It is the turnovers, the self-inflicted wounds for the University of Miami, throwing downfield into triple coverage when you have a guy wide open each way with no defender within 20 yards, taking what the defense gives you, the small plays. I don't think Shannon Dawson's very good. I've said it for 2 straight years. I don't think he's a very good offensive coordinator. I think Cam Ward made him look brilliant. I think Carson Beck is making him look average, and I think that they need to clean that up. The good thing is Andrew Luck doesn't play quarterback for Stanford, and neither does Frank Reich. You know what I mean? So that's a good thing. Neither one of those guys is going to go back in time and get the football snapped to him. So I don't know how this team beat Florida State. I don't take any moral victories from Napier being fired and from Florida State struggling, but I will say this. The University of Miami Hurricanes by far are a top 5 team when it comes to talent in this country, maybe top 3, maybe top 2. But when talent doesn't play up to its capability, or when talent shoots itself in the foot with penalties and turnovers, but what I want to see, I don't want to put this all on the players. These are young men who are being coached sometimes, okay? So I think that I want to see much more creativity out of the offense from Dawson, and I think he's on the hot seat this week. I want to see more of a commitment to the run game. I want to see some variance in the run game. Now, as much as we love Fletcher, and as much as we love Marty Brown, who inexplicably touches the ball, runs 3 times for 14 yards, and then doesn't touch it again for 2 quarters.
That was weird.
Right? Yeah, right. This is why I say it's coaching. It makes no sense to me. But then, of course, you have other players coming back, and you have guys
like Jordan
like Lyles coming. So he's the home run hit. You didn't have the home run hitter when he was out. So finding a way to, and we've seen it through the years. Don Solinger, I hate to bring him up again. Well, I don't. He's a great.
Why not?
When you had McGahee, when you had Gore, when you had those guys, James Jackson, when you were 3 deep, Najee Davenport, they had clearly defined roles, and they found ways to Rob Chudzinski to use those guys in the best possible ways and to work them through and cycle them through creative play calling so that they all got to touch the ball and they all made big plays. Where's that with this team? Where's that with these running backs? Where's that with these receivers, right? Daniels and Tony were the best players on the field last week for the Hurricanes. They couldn't cover them unless they triple covered them. So I would like to see more creativity with the play calling for sure. Cleaning things up like the penalties. The penalties to me are the biggest thing, Alex, because lack of discipline from a football team shows itself in the form of penalties. But even when penalties aren't called, you can see the lack of discipline, things like not being in the right place, things like not finishing blocks, things like an offensive guard not picking up a blitzer when it's passed off by the center, just little things like that. When those things happen, that's a lack of discipline. That's a lack of focus. And I just don't like to see that from a team with this much talent. And that clearly is very much so in a lot of ways coaching. So I liked what Mario said last week. I hope that every coach took that personally. I hope every player took it personally. And I hope they come out and they blow the doors off of Stanford this week, because a close game here and it could go off the rails. Win or lose, a close game here and this whole season could just go off the rails.
Yeah, and so just to put a bow on the keys, there's only one more additional one that I can think of, because we talked about, Carson Beck, cut out the turnovers, become check down Beck. Like, that's what we need. Don't be throwing downfield into triple coverage when you have check down Beck needs to return. Get the running game going again. Cut down on the penalties, as you so eloquently described how that can derail a good football team. Defensively, the other thing, and the defense had some good stretches last week after falling down early, but the tackling was uncharacteristically poor last week. That's not been who they are this year outside of that Louisville game. So clean that up, because Miami was credited with 24 missed tackles by Pro Football Focus last week, which is abysmal. Again, that wasn't who they were outside of that one game. So show us that was not your identity. With that said, Grease, let's move into predictions. What do you got tonight? Does Miami win? By how much?
They made me look bad last week, Alex. And Louisville did not belong on the field with them. They didn't. But that, you have games like that, and that happens. And I should have known better that Louisville, they've done well against us recently.
And also, like, we underestimated, and not to take any blame away from Miami, but we underestimated the power of an ACC Friday night game, because the favorites never win on Friday nights.
Oh, man, I hate those Friday night games. I really do. That's for high school football. It's just a money grab by the networks. You know what I mean? They can't bilk the athletes the way they used to. So now they have to find more ways to make money. But I think that this game is not close. There's no way it can be close. Miami coming off a loss, they're going to come out of that tunnel like a bunch of rabid dogs. There's not enough meat to go around, and they got to fight for it, right? And it's Darwinism at its finest on the football field. And I think they just eat Stanford alive. Yeah. And I don't know if Stanford scores in this game. I don't want to get myself in trouble again, but I'm going 40 plus, 45. I'm going to say 48-0 Miami. And
Wow.
I'm going to go one further, Mario, Shannon Dawson, Corey Heatherman. It better be 48-0 Miami, or you're going to have more explaining to do, because this team does not belong on the field. The only thing is they have confidence from the FSU win, obviously, so that's going to help Stanford a little bit. And I know that they've seen some things that they can exploit, and it's just a matter of adjusting. But the superior athletes, it's not even close in terms of talent between these two teams.
Yeah, so I'm going 38-13, which I know technically wouldn't have them covering the spread, but the reason why I'm going with that sort of score line is I don't necessarily expect Miami to play in a way that is going to be conducive to scoring points in bunches. I think they're really going to try to maul Stanford. I think it's really, Mario Cristobal, Alex Mirabal, Shannon Dawson, they all really take pride in the running game, which has been just broken for the past couple of weeks. And so that's the identity they're going to want to establish. And I think if you make an effort to really maul the opponent and get physical, I just think it's going to shorten the game in a way where I'm not expecting. Maybe it does play out your way. Believe I've been wrong before, but I'm just not expecting. I'm just not expecting it to play out in a way where we're putting up 40 points. And I think Stanford, despite their quarterback maybe being banged up, I think Gulbranson playing is big for them. If they had the backup quarterback going, Elijah Browning, I think is his name, with virtually no experience, then I would probably pick a shutout. But with I'm assuming, if they're saying that Gulbranson is healthy enough to play, he's going to be able to lead a couple of scoring drives. But I'm going 38-13 Miami, which I know wouldn't technically be covering the 29.5-point spread, which I think is too big to begin with. But if they win it the way I think Miami's going to win it, it's going to be comfortable, and we'll have no reason to complain afterwards, even if they only win by 25 points.
And let's not forget they're wearing camo tonight. Look at your hat, brother.
Yeah, that's why. That's why I'm wearing the hat.
They're going to war, baby. They are going to war with that camo.
Yeah, and I'll be out at the stadium later, and I want to throw a shout out to one of our listeners, Rick Villarreal, who makes us these buttons. Rick is a great dude. I'm going to have a couple bags of these buttons courtesy of Rick that I'm going to be giving out. So if you happen to see me, I'll be with my 7-year-old son, Luca, who's a football expert. He can give you the score to like any game that happened this weekend already or last weekend. But if you run into us, ask me if I have any of these. It's all about the U buttons. I also have Locked On Canes buttons. We'll be giving those out. And of course, make sure you check out our guy Grease right after the game tonight on the Postcast. We'll talk to everybody later on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.